All right, 4 big ideas, and we're going to weave them together to be more curious about living our ordinary day in an extraordinary way. And all that means is that we find ourselves accessing this expansive state of well-being more often than being stuck and spinning in some version of our stress response. Fighting, pushing against, running, escaping, avoiding things that are hard, shutting down and just not dealing, or kind of playing dead and in denial of all of it. So we're going to be awesome after this video, and then you're going to be awesome after the next thing you do, and then you're going to be awesome after the next thing you do. So 4 things. 1, life is a continuous exchange of energy and information. Thank you, Dan Siegel. That's where I heard that, and it resonated because it stuck. Constant exchange of energy and information. So we interpret the world through our senses. So we have physical senses and we have non-physical senses. So the non-physical sense could be, one big one would be our sense of balance, our equilibrium. Too much, not enough, just right. So life is happening. There's this exchange, we're taking in information through our senses, and we have to organize it. So you have, we're living in a time where there's this long transition between this industrial age into this digital age. So how quickly energy moved, you can imagine how energy, whether you imagine it as like atoms and molecules like bouncing all around, but in a digital age, it's moving fast. So you have those of us that are still in active participants in life that were born in a landscape where it moved slower. And then you have those that are born into a landscape where it moves fast, digital landscape. So there's just this difference in our generations. And I learned from a friend, shared a podcast, an author wrote a book, Gintelligence. And one of the big takeaways just from listening to the podcast was we have 5 actively invested generations operating at the same time and figuring out how to value each different generation, how to work together to obviously contribute to greater good and a general enjoyment of life. So there's that, right? So one of the skills, the first skill that I think when I narrow things down to try to, like, how do you teach this stuff? I think when you're dealing with, like in my job, when you're working with kids that have difficulty time regulating their thinking, their feeling states, their emotions, or their behavior, their impulse control, when you're working with how to regulate big feelings, it helps to teach the nervous system, right? So if you break down the nervous system, if you be curious about a cell, you can start to see how the same laws that function in a cell are the same ones that function in us as this expression of trillions of cells. That can sound confusing, but if it's probably not confusing to think, okay, I'm going to break this down to its smallest component and then build from there. So on that thinking, when I narrow down what is like the skill set, so if I'm going to teach the nervous system, start with the cell, but if you're going to teach skills to regulate the stress response, start with awareness. So the skill notice, name is the first skill in my check-in, but it's an effective skill, okay? So when you're the noticer, you're practicing your awareness. When you're the namer, you're identifying, so you're becoming the scientist. Scientists are curious problem solvers. Noticers are connected to time and space, present moment. The only time you can really have that power to shift outcomes. That's probably not totally true, but in the present moment is when you're integrated, just like cell, maintain integrity. When you're integrated, mind, body, heart, the noticer, spirit. Okay, so we've got a constant exchange of energy and information, and we have the skill notice, name. So let me show you how I use this skill this weekend. So on Monday, Labor Day, I love Denver on holidays because it's just super chill. Everybody's up in the mountains and living in kind of a busy area. It's super chill, and I like that. But Monday afternoon, I came back from a walk, or it was before I went for a walk. And I had this feeling, this experience, and it was kind of dull. And I was like, caught myself, and I was like, what's this feeling? And I was like, is this lonely? And I was kind of surprised because I really like being by myself. So I was like, am I lonely? Which is fine, because I do think that we grow and like we need people, and I need to do that, but I really like being by myself. So I was like, but then I realized a series of events that happened, and it was after a walk because it happened on my way home from a walk. So what I realized was that the feeling I was feeling was a feeling of vulnerability. And I noticed it in my belly space. And I think vulnerability is a big trigger for most of us. Because if you think when you feel vulnerable, you're going from a state of feeling a sense of safety and security to all of a sudden something happens to disrupt that. And so there's a vulnerability. So what happened was that when I came home from the walk, on my corner, there was a car that was up on the corner, all the way up on the corner. And there was two men that had been in the car, and they had been run off the road. And there's not really a lot of people around, but they had been run off the road. But on my little road, and I could talk for a long time about my little road, there's been kind of this rash of the summer. There's been some really unfortunate things, just a series of events that would disrupt your sense of safety and security. And so like it was bad, and then it's been pretty calm the last 3 weeks or so. And so I realized that when this car happened, after I had gotten back up to my apartment, and I had this like kind of dullness. And when I feel this feeling, to me, it's connected to like this existential kind of thinking, like, what is this all about? And that was my depression, was kind of like, life's a joke, right? Like what's this all about? Like, this isn't fun. So that was kind of like, I noticed this feeling that got my attention. And so when I went to identify it, and I was thinking, is this lonely? And then I thought, no, it's vulnerable. And then I was able to make the connection that there was these experiences that happened, and then this just triggered that kind of dull state of existential kind of what's it all about, and a disruption to your sense of safety and security. So life is going to happen, but when we're able to have space where we can identify, well, where we can notice how our body's responding, and we can identify, we can start to be curious, and we can practice skills, tools, and strategies to soothe the response, to get back into that regulated state. So what does that bring us to is quiet time. So I'm taking my check-in, if you pay attention to my Facebook page. It's the first curriculum I created, and I'm taking the check-in, which is like a mindfulness curriculum, 8 steps to more inspiration, possibility, creativity, like this expansive state of well-being. So there's 8 steps, so there's 32 skills. The first skill is notice name. And where you practice these skills, you practice these skills in a fluid way all the time, but quiet time is, to me, what saved me. And I was thinking this morning when I was in quiet time, I was thinking about this. I used this video of Tom Brady to kind of share just like the essence of living a life that's like of wonder and possibility. And there's this video of him where he's like, I fucking love football. And you could just feel it. Like, it wasn't the money and the fame. It was just football, that football existed. But underneath that is the feeling. And it's expansive, right? That life is this thing, like this thing that we get to experience versus this thing that's happening, this existential, like, why? So this morning in quiet time, I was like, I fucking love quiet time. And I'd forgotten about the Tom Brady, and then I put that together. But to have time to resonate with you, to have time to be able to be the observer, the watcher, the noticer, the witness to how you're showing up, how you're responding to situations, circumstances, events, the messaging that could be going on to your intelligent cells, and like being part of the whole process. So constant exchange of energy and information, and we're organizing it. So when we organize it, our nervous system, if we're giving it a message that it's a threat to our sense of safety and security, our body is going to give us indicators. We're going to have our feelings feel, right? So if you think your nervous system, mind, heart, belly, skin, muscles, the indicators can let you know how you're responding to something. Emotional intelligence, identify the problem or identify this, understand, and then manage. So, quiet time. That's the name of the check-in book.